Buat saya, motivasi terbesar adalah cinta. Karena saya percaya apabila kita fokus kepada cinta, maka apapun yang kita lakukan, perbuatan kita, pikiran kita, tenaga kita, akan menjadi berlipat ganda untuk menjadikan cinta tersebut semakin terjaga. Jadi, apabila Anda ingin mendapatkan motivasi, temukan cinta terbesar, lalu pastikan Anda support cinta tersebut sehingga Anda menjadi pribadi yang lebih hebat. Saya Hilbram Dunar untuk IDX Channel.
1.2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines landed safely at Jakarta Airport. Wicky Gedung expressed interest in building project constructions in the new capital city. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sector. With me, Lantai, and this is Market Headlines. Let's open up market headlines with the historical moment, which is the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. And as we know, 1.2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines has been rolled out as it is safely landed in Indonesia. The arrival of the vaccines is part of the government's attempt to bring in the vaccines gradually. The Indonesian government plans to import another 1.8 million complete doses at the beginning of January 2021 and more before the end of December.
Pemerintah sudah menerima 1,2 juta dosis vaksin COVID-19. Vaksin ini buatan Sinovac yang kita uji secara klinis di Bandung sejak Agustus 2020 yang lalu. Kita juga masih mengupayakan 1,8 juta dosis vaksin yang akan tiba di awal Januari 2021.
Even though the vaccine has arrived in Indonesia, the vaccination itself must undergo evaluation stages from the BPOM to ensure the vaccine's quality, safety, and effectiveness. About the mechanism, Indonesia's COVID-19 vaccinations program will be provided in two ways, which are free vaccinations and paid vaccinations. From Jakarta, Lantai for IDX Channel. Moving on to the next coverage, President Joko Widodo has urged everyone to remain disciplined with the coronavirus health protocols despite the arrival of 1.2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines at Jakarta Airport. Has been long awaited. The Presidential Secretariat YouTube account broadcasted the arrival of the Garuda Indonesia flight at Jakarta Cargo Terminal that carried the COVID-19 vaccines doses produced by Sinovac Biotech. President Joko Widodo appealed to the public to not solely depend on the COVID-19 vaccines, which has been arrived. Indeed, the vaccines are one of the interventions to protect the public health. But however, people must understand that implementing the health protocol is the main measure to tackle this pandemic.
Meski vaksin sudah ada, kita tetap harus disiplin menjalankan protokol kesehatan, tetap disiplin 3M, memakai masker, menjaga jarak, mencuci tangan, selalu harus terus kita lakukan.
The discipline could be exercised from now on as an effort to prevent virus transmissions. The basic health principles include wash hands regularly, avoid crowds, and wear face mask. From Jakarta, Lantai Wijaya for IDX Channel. Health Minister Terawan Agus Putranto ensured entire procedure of COVID-19 vaccinations can only begin after it undergoes a thorough check by the Food and Drug Monitoring Agency or BPOM. And through virtual press conference, Health Minister ensured that the first thing first, vaccines must go through evaluations and clinical tests before it is given to people. An evaluation is taken by the Food and Drug Monitoring Agency or BPOM. Evaluations starts from the checking the feasibility, sustainability, and the temperature maintenance so that the vaccine is not damaged during delivery. The health minister also underlined that the evaluations is very important to measure COVID-19 vaccine's effectivity due to its big role in 2021. And therefore, when vaccinations is ready by 2021, there will not be error.
Dan selanjutnya vaksin akan segera dilakukan persetujuan untuk penggunaan emergency use authorization-nya oleh Badan Pengawas Obat dan Makanan sesuai dengan saintifik dan ketentuan perundang.
Central Bank just released Indonesia's foreign exchange reserves at the end of November 2020, fell slightly when compared to the positions of the end of October 2020. Indonesia's foreign exchange reserve fell by $100 million to $133.6 billion in November 2020. The latest reserve level was equivalent to 9.9 months of import financing, or 9.5 months of imports and payments of government external debt. And this is well above the international adequacy standard of around 3 months of imports. Bank Indonesia still sees that the official reserve assets positions is able to support the external sector resilience and maintain macroeconomic and financial system stability. The central bank stated that the decline in November's foreign exchange reserves was driven by government foreign debt payment. Going forward, central bank may see a moderate buildup in foreign exchange reserve on the back on capital inflows, proceeds from export, as well as other foreign exchange earnings as the global uncertainty slowly dissipate. From all sources, IDX Channel. Mark and us will be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Sebetulnya industri hilir itu lokal itu udah siap. Jadi pemerintah juga nggak perlu lagi menarik investor untuk industri hilir. Jadi pemerintah cukup menarik investor untuk industri bahan baku.
Perbaikan pertumbuhan ekonomi adalah bukti bahwa penanganan COVID-19 berjalan dengan maksimal.
Dari data-data yang ada, kita sudah mulai bangkit dari resesi ini.
Presiden Joko Widodo menekankan peningkatan pengembangan pasar harus dilakukan di tengah pandemi COVID-19.
Saya ingin ingatkan dan tekankan kembali untuk terus mencari pasar-pasar baru.
One of the most important ways that the government buffer the adverse consequences of the socio-economic disadvantage is through the provisions of the social aid. But sadly, it has been corrupted. Corruptions Eradications Commissions just named Social Minister Juliari Batubara as a suspect in the case of COVID-19 social aid program.
Social Affairs Minister Juliari Batubara has been named as a suspect in a graft case involving the distributions of a COVID-19 social aid. Corruption Eradications Commission's chairman, Firly Bahuri, said during a press conference on a Sunday morning that Juliari, along with his subordinates Matthews Joko Santoso and Adi Wahyono, had purportedly accepted roughly 12 billion rupiah in bribes from a number of suppliers during the first wave of ministry's aid distributions earlier this year. And as a whole, Juliari allegedly received 17 billion rupiah kickbacks from suppliers of Zepil foods used in the COVID-19 social assistance program in the Greater Jakarta area. From all sources, IDX Channel.
The role of the Minister of Social Affairs is really important in providing Indonesians in need of the system support to help achieve social and economic potential. And moreover, in the midst of the pandemic, one of the ministry's biggest agenda goes for distributing the social aid. And of course, the minister is the chief of the boat. But ironically, the social aids has been corrupted by the minister. And before we talk about the corruptions case itself, there's a question mark about where does the money come from. So let's take a look at the bigger picture first. Here it is through your screen. We can see the government budget allocations for COVID-19 social aids. Here it is. We can see, first, the government through the National Economic Recovery Program budget has set up 695 trillion rupiah, and it's diversed into 6 priority programs. One of them is the social aid that reaching 204 trillion rupiah. And we've talked about the ministry itself. The Ministry of Social Affairs budget has been allocated for 128 trillion rupiah. And according to the ministry's integrated data for the social welfare system, recorded that there were 29 million poor households in Indonesia, and of the number of 20 million have received government's financial aid. And aside from the National Economic Recovery Program, the Ministry of Social Affairs budget continued to increase in line with the task of handling the impact of the pandemic in the field of the social safety net. And indicative ceiling was originally 62.7 trillion rupiah, but then it went up to 104.4 trillion rupiah and went up again to 134 trillion rupiah. And the realizations is more than 97.2% as of December 6, 2020. And this is the highest of the 85 ministries and institutions. And if we talk about the budget absorptions, Ministry of Social Affairs has a better performance than other ministry. And meanwhile, the total budget included in the social protections program scheme, both regular and the non-regular, reaching 128.78 trillion rupiah, and the realizations was more than the average ministry. So let's see the social protections program scheme absorptions through the next graphic. Here it is through your screen. We can see the Ministry of Social Affairs budget absorptions, which is really high. Through your screen, we can see that the current realizations as of November 26, 2020, the number is really high by 95%, while the total budget is 128 trillion rupiah. Way to go, and this is the biggest achievement so far. And if according to the ministry and other related ministries that I've mentioned before, 85 ministries and institutions. And the Ministry of Social Affairs is ranked first as the ministry with the best budget absorptions. And indeed, the Ministry of Social Affairs plays an important role in handling COVID-19, especially in the field of providing social safety net. And the Ministry of Social Affairs is tasked with the ensuring of the presence of the state through the handling of the impact of the pandemic on tens of millions of poor and vulnerable people. And those poor people also obtain various social aid programs from the government. So we can see it through the next graphic. Here it is through your screen. I assume that you see the government social aid programs. Here it is. We can see there are so many programs. There are 6 programs so far that is designed by the government. First of all, let's take a look at the Family Hope program with the budget absorptions of with a budget total of 36 trillion rupiah, and then moving on to the staple food aid program, which has been allocated for 42 trillion rupiah, and moving on to the cash social transfer program, which is allocated by 32.4 trillion rupiah. And next we can see the Jabodetabek staple food aid, which is reaching 6 trillion rupiah, and the Rise to Family Hope program beneficiaries by 4.5 trillion rupiah, and then the next Rise to Staple Food Aid program beneficiaries, and it's the same, 4.5 trillion rupiah. And 4 programs carried out by the Ministry of the Social Affairs itself, namely the Family Hope program and the assistance in the form of basic food and groceries cash assistance. And unlike other regions in Indonesia that receive COVID-19 relief social aids in cash, people in the greater Jakarta area, or we can call it as Jabodetabek, received the aid in staple food, including rice, oil, canned sardines, and among others with worth 300,000 rupiah per package. And the Social Affairs Ministry set aside 5.9 trillion rupiah for a total of 272 staple food procurement contracts carried out in the 2 periods. And here it is. Now it comes to the core problem. The minister set kickbacks from each social aid package, and the kickbacks agreed upon by his subordinate was 10,000 rupiah for its package, valued at 300,000 rupiah. Let's see the scheme on the next graphic. Here it is through the next graphic. We can see the Minister of Social Affairs graph probe. Here it is. We can see that the distributions of COVID-19 social aid consisting of daily supplies from the Social Affairs Ministry, and it's worth 5.9 trillion rupiah, while there are 272 contracts remained on these daily supplies and the suppliers itself. But however, through the 2 periods that I've mentioned before, the corruptions amount that the minister has done reaching 17 billion rupiah. And in short, KPK Chairman Firly Bahuri told a press conference that Juliari allegedly received 17 billion rupiah, or if we convert it into US dollar, it would be around 1.2 million US dollar. And it is in the kickbacks from the suppliers of the staple foods used in the COVID-19 social assistance program in the greater Jakarta area. And as viewers, we hope that Juliari's case should serve a reminder for the ministers to avoid corruptions. Been 2 weeks in a row, Indonesia's ministers have been depicted by corruption eradication commissions due to corruption cases. What a shame, then. We hope that this thing never happen again. And stay tuned on market headlines, because we will be back after this quick break.
Nama saya Devisa Novel, jabatan saat ini di IDX Channel adalah sebagai produser dan sekaligus presenter program yang dibawakan saat ini dengan nama IDX Second Session Closing, terkait juga dengan kondisi capital market Indonesia dan perkembangannya dari waktu ke waktu. Dan saya sangat senang untuk belajar dan berkecimpung di berita ekonomi, khususnya di capital market.
Seiring dengan penutupan dari Bursa Wall Street di mana S&P kembali mencatatkan rekor tertinggi sepanjang sejarah, buat IHSG juga pada pagi hari ini dibuka di teritori positif, pemirsa.
Kedua, pasar masih melihat adanya proses recovery yang terus berjalan.
Sementara di Asia kita lihat berakhir positif juga pada perdagangan Jumat kemarin setelah rilis data ekonomi di wilayah Eropa dan Amerika yang mengalami penguatan.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. So let's take a look at Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So earlier today, JCI was opened at the level of 5,854.3, and then approaching the closing time of the first session, the index was on the level of 5,907.42. And then the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session closing time. The index was closed at the level of 5,930.76. And in short, JCI went up 2.07%. And next, we're going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got manufacturer as the leader of the strengthening trend that went up 2.68%. We got mixed industry that went up 2.76%. And agriculture went up 2.25%. And mining went up 2.07%. Moving on to the top gainers and top losers, here are the key highlights for today's trading. We got Kalbe Pharma that went up 24.79% to the level of 4,430 per share. We got TKIM that went up 15.41% to the level of 9,925 per share. We got INKP that went up 11.29% to the level of 10,600 per share, and SMBR that went up 21.78%. And meantime, for the top losers for today's trading, we got BFIN that went down 6.57%. We got NATO that went down 1.61%. We got CPIN that went down 1.18%, and HOKI that went down 0.92%. And next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. Here it is, rupiah opened at level of 14,135. Rupiah was also showing strengthening trend towards US dollar and was closed at the level of 14,091. In summary, rupiah went up 0.35%. And as viewers, moving on to the next coverage, Wicky Gedung expressed interest in being involved in the constructions of the new capital city in East Kalimantan. And the company estimates that it can reach 20% of the total budget for building constructions projects in the new capital city.
Wicky Gedung or WG expressed interest in being involved in the construction of the new capital city in East Kalimantan. President Director of Wicky Gedung, Nariman Prasetyo, explained that the construction of the new state capital in East Kalimantan will be followed by all state-owned companies engaged in construction. Even though the project is currently being hampered due to the coronavirus pandemic, Wicky Gedung has prepared a number of plans so that it can achieve the contract target. The company's marketing team has mapped out potential projects and buildings that will be needed in the new capital city. Nariman continued, from the 51 trillion rupiah budget for building construction in the new capital, WG estimates that it can reach 20% of them. WG will also focus its efforts on prioritized projects. Meanwhile, until the end of November 2020, WG has booked a new contract value of 2.32 trillion rupiah, or 68% of the new contract target for 2020. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
And yes, viewers, Kawasan Industri Jababeka reported that the revenue from the industrial land sales reached 254 billion rupiah in the third quarter of 2020. The sales achievement was contributed by 83% of the domestic buyers.
Kawasan Industri Jababeka or KIJA reported that revenue from industrial land sales reached 254 billion rupiah in the third quarter of 2020. Corporate Secretary of Kawasan Industri Jababeka, Mulyadi Suganda, revealed that industrial land sales was dominated 83% by domestic buyers. Nevertheless, he is not yet able to mention the sales target until end of 2020. Meantime, overall, in the third quarter, the company's revenue increased by 29.07% year-on-year to 1.82 trillion rupiah. 55% was contributed by real estate and property, 43% from infrastructure, and the other 3% from leisure business line. Despite posted an increase in revenue, Kija recorded a loss of 266 billion rupiah. Even though in the same period last year, Kija still had a net profit of 66.06 billion rupiah. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
And yes, viewers, the government is currently making preparations to develop a single data information system for COVID-19 vaccination. The system is designed to integrate data from various sources into one data and avoid duplicate data information.
The government is making preparations by appointing two state-owned companies, Bio Farma and Telkom, to carry out an information system for one COVID-19 vaccination data. A single data information system for COVID-19 vaccine recipients was created to integrate data from various sources into one data and avoid duplicate data information. The system built will record vaccine recipients through filtering individual data on priority vaccine recipients. Then it will become a government and independent vaccine registration application and map the supply and distribution of vaccines with vaccination locations. The system to be integrated will also monitor the results of vaccination.
Ke depan mudah-mudahan ini dapat menjadi juga salah satu awal yang baik untuk satu data kesehatan Indonesia.
Meanwhile, Bio Farma stated that the creation of the data information system being developed would follow existing regulations.
Semua proses ini juga harus mengikuti best practice, harus mengikuti regulasi yang ada, baik regulasi dari Kementerian Kesehatan, Badan POM, Kominfo, berkaitan dengan privacy data, dan seterusnya.
The data that is managed in this information system is not only limited to data on vaccine recipients, but also data on vaccines that are distributed. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Step aside from the market conditions as coronavirus pandemic takes a big role in the current economic situations. Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business, and capital market channel. And before saying goodbye, I would like to remind you on what Mom said. Please do comply with the health protocol by using mask, physical distancing, and avoiding crowd. Also washing your hand often with soap through overflowing water. I'm Clara Wijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.